Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to Physio Move and Groove. My name is Jeannie, and I'm a physical therapist with over 25 years of experience helping people to move well, feel well, and be well. So we're going to be talking about back stabilization exercises today. And I know many of you might be thinking, well, what even is back stabilization? You've probably heard people talk about it, but you're not even sure what it is. So first off, we're going to talk a little bit about that there are different areas of your body that should move and different areas of your body that should be stable. So, and they kind of go in a pattern. So you have your neck, which should be more stable, your mid-spine or your thoracic spine, which should be very movable, your low back, which should be stable, your hips, which should be moving, your knees, which should be stable, your ankles, which should be moving, and your feet should be stable. So that's kind of the way our bodies work. So today we're going to be talking about how to stabilize your low back. And the beauty of this is it really doesn't matter what kind of back problem you have, whether it's a disc problem, a spinal stenosis, a back ache, a back strain, no matter what it is, these particular exercises that we're going to go over today are going to help you to be able to stabilize them, and they should be pain-free. So I want to ask you all a question. What do you think is the number one muscle that helps to stabilize your low back? Just take a guess. All right, well, many people think that it is your rectus abdominis, right? So you see people all the time in the gym doing about 1 million sit-ups. They're working this rectus abdominis. Well, if you are actually trying your best to help your back pain, you're not going to be able to do that by doing a bunch of sit-ups. So the actual muscle that you want to work is called your transverse abdominis. And that particular muscle is a lot lower down below your actual navel. You need to get that muscle to actually work to help stabilize that low back. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. How do we get that muscle to fire? Well, first off, laughter is considered the best medicine. And in fact, that is right when it comes to the abdominal muscles. Think about a time when you just kept laughing and laughing about something nonstop. And sometimes when you've had that fit of laughter, your stomach is sore. That is your transverse abdominis muscle. So that's it working. But how do we get it working when we don't want to be laughing all the time? That's what we're going to go over today. So now what you guys have all been waiting for, we're going to get down to doing the 5 most simple exercises to get this transverse abdominis to work. Okay, so first off, you're going to lie down on your back. The proper way, of course, if you have back pain, which is in another one of those videos that you will see. Okay, so for all you yogis out there, I apologize, but we are not going to do belly breathing for this. I'm going to teach you how to actually expand through your lower rib cage, because that is what's going to help to facilitate that transverse abdominis muscle to work. So when you're lying on your back, I want you to take your hands and I want you to put them on your lower rib cage. Because when we're breathing, you're going to breathe and try to get the air into that lower rib cage to get it to expand. And when you do that, then your abdominal muscles here, your belly, is actually going to pull down and in. And that is what you want to be able to do to get the transverse abdominis to contract, okay? Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about is the pelvic clock. So your pelvis here, I want you to imagine like it's a clock, okay? And up here is actually number 12, and down here is number 6. So if I'm going to make my back go all the way back like this and rock your pelvis backwards, that's a 12. And then if I'm going to rock my pelvis as far forward as I can, that is a 6. So whenever you're doing any kind of core abdominal strengthening exercise, we want a neutral spine. In order to get your spine into that neutral position, you're kind of going in between that 6 and that 12, right in between. That's the position you want to have your back in when you're doing any kind of core strengthening exercise. So if you're noticing, or you're even seeing other people at the gym and their back is arching as they're doing that, they're not working their transverse abdominis muscle, and they're certainly not going to be supporting their back. So again, that's the one position, that's the other position, find that neutral. Then place your hands on the outer lower border of your rib cage And I just want you to take a deep breath in, and I want you to imagine expanding the lower rib cage as you do that. And then breathe out. And what you want to notice is you don't want the air to go into your belly. You want the air to expand in the lower part of your rib cage. And as you're doing that as well, you don't want to be pushing your back down into the bed. So you want to maintain that neutral pelvis position. So I really want you all to be able to feel what it's like to get that neutral pelvis position and to be breathing and expanding the air through that lower rib cage. This is what's really necessary for when you're doing your core strengthening exercises. So let's try that again. Just take a deep breath in. Don't move this pelvis at all. Keep it in that neutral position and then breathe out. And as you breathe out, you'll feel the ribs descend, but then you'll also feel your tummy actually go inwards. So this is the type of breathing pattern we want. Now, while we're doing these core strengthening exercises, what you can do is take your two thumbs and put them on these little bones in the front. These are called your anterior superior iliac spine. Basically, what we want is for those bones right here to stay in the same position that they're in that you start with. So many times what happens, people get into their nice neutral spine position, and then you'll see them doing all these crazy exercises, and their pelvis is going to come completely out of position. So if these bones start to move downwards, then that means you're no longer actually stabilizing your low back. So it's just a cue for you to know if you're doing the exercise correctly. So you're going to take your thumbs, you're going to put them on top of those bones, you're going to find your neutral position, all the way to the 6, all the way to the 12, go in between. You're going to pull those abdominal muscles in, keep them nice and tight. Thumbs are on those ASISs, and the very first exercise that you're going to do is you're going to walk your heel outwards. Now, when you walk your heel outwards, you're going to keep those abs engaged, and you're going to feel here to see if your bone goes towards your foot, if it goes inferiorly. If it moves, then that means that you're no longer stabilizing your pelvis. So you can only bring that foot as far as you can go to where you can maintain this neutral position. Now keep in mind, back in the old days, 25 years ago, when I first started practicing, they would tell you all the time, keep that pelvic tilt, pelvic tilt, pelvic tilt, pelvic tilt. But now it's more of a neutral spine position. That's what we want to keep. So that in-between position, abs are tight without flattening your back, and then you walk that heel out. Now, what you'll see is if this starts to go forward like that, and I bring my leg out, well, at that point, my abs are no longer stabilizing my low back. So you're not helping yourself. So you're better to stay within the motion that you can do and do the exercise correctly than try to make it harder for you. So that's the very first exercise. The next exercise that you can do is marching. Same principles. Any single core exercise, abdominal exercise that you do, you have the same principles. You find your neutral spine position, you put your hands here on those ASISs, you pull those abdominal muscles in without flattening your back, and then you can lift a leg up, and you can do marching. And again, the same principles hold true. Your back is not going to flatten, your abs are going to stay tight, this pelvis doesn't move. So these ASISs should stay in the same position the whole time. And you're breathing. Don't forget to breathe. Now there are a lot of different things you can add on to this. So we've got marching here, but you can also do where you bring up one leg and you bring the opposite arm back and forth. So you can do that as well. Again, as long as you maintain that neutral spine position. Sometimes you can even grab a weight, like what we have here. So again, same principle, forward, back, neutral, abs are tight. This one you can't exactly tell what your ASISs are doing. So this is a little bit more advanced, but once you get used to what the position should be, then you can start to add on different things. Again, As your arms go back, you must make sure that your abs are engaged and that your back does not arch. So that's another exercise that you can do. Then another one, as you get a little bit more advanced with things, is again the same principles. You go forward, you go back, you find your neutral spine, but then you can actually start to have both your legs up in the air in a 90-90 position. This is a pretty advanced exercise. You can see what can happen as soon as I lift up, right? My back arches. So I would not want to do this exercise. So you have to make sure that you start off with your abs tight. Again, you're not in that pelvic tilt, you're in that neutral position. You'll hold that, and then you can drop one leg down. This is pretty tough to do this exercise if you're doing it and stabilizing properly. And then you can march. Again, this should not happen. You got to be able to keep it. And you can see I struggle with this one. This is pretty tough for me. But you should not feel those ASIS bones move inferiorly as you're marching. So a lot of times you'll see people even, start to bring their leg out and back and out and back. And again, these are all okay as long as you're able to maintain that neutral spine position while you're doing it. The longer your legs go, the harder it is. These are just some options for you. So those are kind of the back stabilization progression when you're on your back. Now, another position you can get yourself into is on all fours. That's a great way to also stabilize that spine. And the principles are exactly the same. So again, you're going to find your pelvic clock. So you're going to go from one extreme to the other extreme, and then right in between. That's your pelvic neutral. You'll pull your abs in, and then once you're in this position, you can decide to move your arms, your legs, or both. So you can start off first by moving those legs. Again, you want it to be in a straight line, and you want to make sure that your abs are engaged. So many times you'll see people do these exercises and they'll start to rotate. If you're rotating your hips like that, you're no longer stabilizing your spine. If you start to dip and extend your back like this, again, no longer stabilizing your spine. So neutral position, again, abs are pulled in, and then of course you can start to lift your legs. There's also an exercise called a bird dog, where you will get in that neutral spine position and then go opposite arm and leg. Head stays straight, arms and legs are straight as well. There's also an option too that you can get a yardstick or a meter stick, and you can put it on your back. It kind of is just a guide for you to know if you're doing this exercise correctly, because if the yardstick falls off, then that means that you're rotating somewhere. So you would not want that to happen. Okay, so those are some options for when you're on all fours. And the last exercise that I'm going to show you is one that everybody likes to do, but it is a really good exercise for back stability, and that is a plank. Plank is a great exercise. It's in a neutral position. It's safe for the back as long as you do it correctly. So first off, when you plank, you want to make sure that you are on your arms, on those toes. You do not want your back to be extended like that. And you also don't want to be making a bridge and be up like this. So the most important part, again, is that your abs are pulled in, your glutes are squeezed, and you just maintain this one position. You also don't want your head to be up or down. You want it to be in a neutral position as well. And then just hold it. Make sure that you breathe. Breathing is super important. If it's too hard to be up on your toes, then drop your knees. That's okay too. You're still able to squeeze those glutes and contract those abs and hold it in this position. Okay, so those are some options for you. I cannot stress enough that whenever you do any kind of abdominal strengthening, that you make sure that you maintain that core and that pelvis in a neutral position, that you do not let it arch forward, that you do not rock it back too far, because we want to make sure that neutral position is maintained to be able to stabilize your spine. So you've got a few choices on your back, you've got choices on all fours, and then of course the plank position. So hopefully those 4 or 5 different choices for you will help you to be able to support your low back. So I just want everyone to remember here to please subscribe to Physio Move and Groove. That subscribe button, it's right there. You just gotta go ahead and press it for me. Like it, give me some ideas of some things that you would like me to cover, some topics in the future, because all those things are just gonna make my heart smile and keep me working on these videos every single Friday. So just remember folks, you can't spell party without PT. Keep moving and grooving, and I will catch you next Friday.